Welcome, kind soul. You're here now, and that matters more than you know. This is Diary of Abandoned Souls, a place where the forgotten find their voice, and the broken find a listener. I'm a groomer, and through my work, through brushing tangled fur and washing away layers of pain, I've come to know stories that never make it into headlines, but live forever in hearts. Each dog we rescue, each paw that trembles in our hands, carries a story. Sometimes it's told in whimpers, sometimes in silence, but always, always in eyes. The story I'll share with you tonight was whispered to us by a dog who waited where no one waits. Not in a home, not in a shelter, not even by a road, but at a gas station. Day after day, week after week, watching the cars come and go, listening for a sound he knew better than his own heartbeat. The engine of a family that never returned. His story doesn't begin with love, but it begins with loyalty. And if you stay, you'll understand just how deep a dog's loyalty runs, even when it breaks him. There was no note left behind. No leash tied to a post. No goodbye, just a trunk that closed. Doors that shut, and an engine that drove off faster than he could run. At first, he didn't panic, because they always came back. They'd gone inside to grab snacks, to get gas, to use the restroom. That's what gas stations are for, right? Stops, pauses, moments, not endings. So he sat, patiently, tail twitching, ears perked, watching every person who walked in or out, every child who squealed, every car that slowed down, and the sun set, and the lights flickered on. And still, he waited. The employees noticed him first, just a shape by pump, then by the trash bins, then curled on the hot asphalt beneath the lights. No collar, no tags, just eyes that scanned each shadow like a soldier scanning the horizon for rescue. Some tried to chase him off. Others left out scraps, but he didn't move much, didn't bark, didn't beg. He just waited. We heard about him through a customer, someone who passed through town once, then again, a week later, and saw the same shape in the same spot. A dog, who seemed to be made of concrete and silence. They called us, and we listened. What followed was a slow unraveling of a soul too loyal to give up, too tired to keep going, and yet still waiting, still hoping. Tonight you'll meet him, not just his body, but his mind, his pain, his quiet strength. He didn't come to us as a dramatic rescue. He came as a whisper on the edge of vanishing. But his name, once we gave it to him, brought him back. His name is Miles, because that's what he waited for. Miles of road, of time, of pain. All for a family that never looked back. But we did, and you are too, right now. And that makes all the difference. Because some souls are rescued not by action, but by attention. In the next part of this story, you'll hear about the moment he was left behind. The thud of the trunk. The shimmer of heat on pavement. The moment where the world split into before and still waiting. But for now, thank you. Thank you for sitting here. In this silence and choosing to listen, because some stories are too quiet to be heard without love. The moment of abandonment. It was late afternoon, the kind of day where heat clings to metal and the air smells like rubber, exhaust, and summer. The gas station buzzed with life, engines idling, doors slamming, Kids begging for candy through cracked windows, and among it all, a dog. He wasn't nervous. Not yet. His tongue lolled gently. His tail tapped the pavement once every few seconds. His ears flicked with every new sound. He was alert, but calm, because this was normal. They had stopped here before. He remembered the way the engine cut, the slam of the door, the chatter of voices he loved. And so, he waited. He had no leash, just trust, because they always came back. They always came back. Minutes passed, then more. The sun shifted, the shadows stretched. His tail stopped wagging. He stood, paced once, sniffed the air. He walked toward the glass doors of the station, but not too close. He knew better than to go inside, knew the rules. So he sat by the trash can instead, watching. People passed, they glanced. Some smiled, none stopped. He turned at every voice, every pair of flip-flops against the pavement, every jingling set of keys. Each time, he stood up. Each time, he sat back down. Then came the sound. An engine. Familiar. Too familiar. He bolted upright, tail wagging wildly, chest rising fast. He ran toward the car, but it didn't stop. It didn't pause. It didn't even slow down. It turned out of the lot, right past pump 6, and disappeared into the blur of sun and dust. He stood in the exact spot where the tires had just been, still, mouth open, breath catching in the back of his throat, waiting for it to reverse, for the brake lights to flare, for someone to yell, "Wait, Miles!" He didn't know his name yet, but even nameless, he knew how to answer love. No one called. He circled the lot, once, twice, sniffing hot cement, the space where the car had been, the spot where he had last seen their feet. He whined, just once, then stopped. Because maybe this was a test. Maybe they were playing a game. Maybe if he sat still long enough, they'd come back smiling. So he sat, facing the road, eyes locked on every car that passed, not blinking, not breathing too deep, just waiting. A woman came out with a soda. She walked past him, then paused, knelt, reached out. "Hey, buddy, you lost?" He didn't flinch, but he didn't move toward her either. She held out a chip. He sniffed it, took it, gently, then walked away, back to the spot, back to the waiting. That night, he curled beneath the yellow glow of the station lights, his body tucked into a tight crescent, his nose pressed against the asphalt. He didn't sleep. Not really. He listened to every car, every voice, every echo that might sound like them. The next morning, he stood when the first car pulled in. His eyes scanned each window. His ears caught every syllable. Not them. Next one. Not them. Next one. Not them. The employees noticed him again. Still here? Whose dog is that? Maybe he ran off, but he didn't run. He stayed, as if that stretch of gas-stained pavement was the only place that made sense. Because that's where they'd left him, and they always came back. He had no concept of betrayal. Not yet, just absence. Absence where love had once been. Absence that echoed louder than any bark. Some dogs, when abandoned, run. Others hide, but not him. He waited, because loyalty lived deeper than pain. And love, even misplaced, doesn't vanish overnight. And so began the long wait. A dog on a curb, a sunburned back, a heart cracked, but beating. Eyes watching every horizon for the sound of forgiveness. Waiting and the inner state of the dog. Waiting became his ritual, his identity, his only answer to the question, what now? Miles didn't leave the lot, not even once. He mapped the edges of his territory, from the far left corner by the stacked crates, to the shade under the ice machine, to the sliver of sun that warmed pump 4 in the early morning. He learned the rhythms of the station, which cars were regular, which voices meant food, which hands tried to touch too fast, which ones tossed scraps without looking. And still, he waited. His eyes were always scanning, even when half-lidded from exhaustion, even when crust had formed at the corners from too many sleepless nights. Because every sound might be them. Every scent might carry a memory. Every second might be the one where the story changes. He grew thinner, not from starvation, some people left food, but from depletion, the kind of hunger that lives in the chest, in the spaces between breaths, in the places where certainty used to be. His coat dulled, fell out in patches, matted where the rain had soaked through, and the heat had baked it back in. Flies found him easily. He didn't fight them off, because what was the point of fighting? When the thing you needed most wasn't coming back, sometimes he'd stand, stretch, walk in a tight circle, then sit again. The same motion, over and over, as if muscle memory could summon them, as if doing the same thing enough times might convince the universe to rewind. He didn't bark, didn't growl, didn't chase, only watched. When other dogs passed through, strays, wanderers, ghosts like him, he didn't move, didn't defend. He was not protecting a place. He was guarding a moment that had already passed, but still lingered in the air, like a perfume that refused to fade. There was a boy who came often with his dad. He started bringing crackers in his pocket, sat near Miles, a few feet away, and tossed them gently. Miles would eat them, then retreat. But one time, he stayed longer, and the boy whispered, "My mom says they probably don't want you." Miles blinked, slowly, not because he understood the words, but because deep down, he already knew. Still, he waited. Rain came, hard, sudden. People ran for shelter, covered their heads, complained. Miles just sat, soaked, head low, eyes blinking against the water. It was easier sometimes to feel cold on the outside, because it matched what lived inside. Night brought different dangers, the hum of insects, the groan of trucks, drunk voices, thrown things. He didn't fight, didn't run. He learned to flinch just right, to absorb rather than resist. But he never left, because what if they came back at night? What if the headlights appeared and he wasn't there to see them? So he stayed. Even when his legs cramped, even when his ribs ached, even when the world told him, again and again, he was forgotten, he still waited. The gas station staff began to worry. A girl on the night shift started leaving water in a paper bowl. A mechanic from the next lot brought old dog biscuits. Nobody claimed him, but nobody chased him anymore either. He became part of the scenery, like the rusted air pump, like the flickering light near the car wash, like the sigh of wind through the dry hedges. But inside him, something stirred. A tiny flicker, not hope, not yet, but endurance. The stubborn belief that waiting was not weakness, that waiting was love, even when love was long gone. And then one day, she appeared, a woman, car full of boxes, eyes full of sorrow, hands that didn't reach right away. She parked, got out, stretched her back, and turned, and saw him. And Miles, he didn't run, didn't wag, didn't make a sound. He simply looked at her, long, quiet, steady, as if he'd been waiting just for this moment. The first encounter with someone who truly sees him, she hadn't planned to stop. It was just a gas station. Another forgettable speck along an endless stretch of road. She had places to be, boxes to deliver, a silence of her own to keep. But then she saw him, a shape curled near the edge of the lot, too still to be resting, too present to be ignored. At first, she wasn't even sure he was real. He blended into the concrete, a soft outline of something waiting to disappear. But then he moved, just a blink, just a turn of the head, and their eyes met. That moment, it wasn't magic. It wasn't cinematic. It was quiet, heavy, uncomfortable in a way that made her heart lean forward. She didn't speak, didn't crouch, didn't offer anything. She just looked, and he looked back. No wagging, no whining, no fear, no begging, just two being, acknowledging each other's ache. She turned away first, not because she wanted to, but because pain like that asks for permission before it's touched. She walked into the station, bought a bottle of water, a pack of gum, and a sandwich she suddenly didn't want. When she came back out, he hadn't moved. She sat on the curb, 6 feet away, opened the sandwich, tore off a piece, laid it gently on the ground between them, then waited. Miles didn't move right away. He looked at the food, then at her, then back at the food. A full minute passed, maybe 2. Then he stood, stretched, walked forward. 3 steps, 4. He reached the offering, sniffed it, took it, then turned and walked back to his spot. She exhaled, not because she was relieved, but because something in her had been holding its breath since she first saw him. The next day, she came again, same time, same spot, this time with chicken and a bowl of water. He stood when she arrived, didn't approach, but watched, aware, present. She spoke this time. Hey, one word, soft, steady. He blinked. She took a step forward, knelt, set the bowl down, backed away. Miles approached slower this time, not because he was unsure, but because something in the space between them felt sacred. He drank, paused, then sat, facing her. She sat too, legs crossed, elbows on her knees, and they just existed together. Every car that passed was background noise. Every voice from inside the shop blurred into hum. There was only the sun, the gravel, and the breath between them. She came every day after that. Sometimes for 10 minutes, sometimes an hour. She never forced, never reached, never named. She just stayed. And slowly, Miles began to shift. He stood when she arrived. He waited at the edge of the lot. He ate while she sat nearby. He sniffed her shoes, watched her eyes, and one afternoon, as she adjusted her bag, he moved closer, just a few inches, but it was enough. She felt it, like warmth rising through cold hands, like the ache in your throat right before a cry. She didn't cry, though, not then. She smiled, softly, and whispered, "There you are." And he stayed, didn't retreat, didn't flinch. He just gestured, like a shadow stepping into the light for the first time. The spark in his eyes. When someone finally sees him, it didn't happen all at once. Healing for creatures like Miles isn't a leap. It's 1,000 quiet steps toward the warmth. And one of them, one of the most sacred, is the return of light to the eyes. The eyes tell everything, especially in dogs, who have learned to guard their silence. For weeks, Miles had watched her, the woman, the one who showed up with food, with patience, with presence. He didn't trust her, not fully. But he recognized something, a stillness, a sorrow, something familiar that didn't try to fix him, just stayed beside the broken. One morning, she arrived earlier than usual. The sky was still smeared with purple. The station hadn't yet filled with the day's rush. The air was cooler, gentler. She stepped out of her car, and he was already standing, waiting. Not stiff, not guarded, just ready. She didn't speak right away, didn't wave or whistle. She just knelt down, opened the small bag she always carried, and pulled out the familiar offering, a soft biscuit, a cooked egg, and the smallest bit of chicken, his favorite. She placed it on the concrete, then sat beside it, a little closer than the day before, and waited. Miles approached slowly, measured, but something was different. His tail, once stiff, once tucked, lifted slightly, not wagging, not dancing, just lifted, as if to say, I remember this. He reached the food, sniffed, paused. Then, instead of eating right away, he looked at her, really looked, and she saw it, the flicker. It wasn't big, it wasn't bold, but in those deep, tired eyes, a tiny ember sparked. Recognition, reckoning, a moment of thought. Maybe I'm not invisible. She smiled. Tears gathered. She didn't speak. Didn't need to, because when you see the light return to someone's eyes, even just a glimmer, you honor it with silence. Miles took the food, ate calmly, deliberately, then did something he'd never done. He walked past her just a step and circled. He came up behind her, sat beside her left knee, close, not touching, but close enough to feel the warmth of her body through the morning air. She didn't move, didn't dare, but in her chest, her heart beat so loudly, it felt like a drum calling the sun. They sat like that for 10 minutes, maybe more. He blinked slowly, watched a butterfly pass, watched a truck pull in, didn't run, didn't flinch. He stayed, because now there was light where there had once been only shadow. That day, his eyes told a new story, not of trust, not yet, but of a possibility, of something rebuilding itself from ruins. Over the next days, he greeted her earlier, waited closer, his tail lifted sooner. His gaze held longer, and when she placed her hand gently on the ground, palm up, he touched it with his nose. Not to take, not to test, but to say, I see you too. And when he looked up afterward, she saw it again. That spark, brighter now, stronger, the kind of light you only see in those who've crawled through darkness and still choose to face the sun. Miles didn't just come alive that day. He returned to himself, to a world where maybe being seen wasn't a danger, but a gift. He stood taller, walked lighter, let his ears drift forward again. And when she laughed, a soft, fragile sound, he turned toward it. Not in alarm, but in curiosity, as if music had finally made sense again. That's what the spark in the eyes means. It means memory isn't the only thing we carry. We carry the chance to begin again. And for the first time since the trunk door slammed shut, Miles believed in that chance. The first real touch and shared emotion. You can't force trust, not from a heart that has been betrayed, not from eyes that have watched the world walk away. Trust must be invited, gently, softly, as if it were a small, frightened bird curled beneath the ribs. She didn't try to touch him that day, or the next, or the one after. She let him every inch of closeness, every pause, every breath between their bodies. And that choice, day after day, was what saved him. It was early evening. The sun hung low, painting the asphalt gold. She arrived with a small towel in one hand, a sandwich in the other, and something in her eyes that looked like resolve wrapped in softness. Miles was waiting, as he always did now. But this time, he walked to meet her, not halfway, all the way. He stopped just before her outstretched hand. She knelt, held her breath, opened her palm, and then he stepped forward, slow, purposeful, his head lowered, and he placed his muzzle into her open hand. She exhaled, her fingers curled gently around his jaw. Not tight, not insistent, just presence. Her thumb moved slowly, brushing along the side of his face, tracing the path where fur had grown back in patches, where old pain had once lived. He didn't flinch, didn't move. He leaned in, not much, just enough. Enough to say, I remember what this is. She didn't speak, didn't cry, but her heart cracked. Not from sadness, but from the way a dog with nothing left had just given her everything. He sat beside her, pressed his weight gently against her thigh. His head rested near her ribs. She could feel his breath rise and fall against her skin. And in that rhythm, she matched her own, two beings breathing together. not as rescuer and rescued, but as witnesses, survivors, companions in the quiet. Her hand moved across his shoulders, slow arcs, like painting safety into his fur, and he closed his eyes. Not because he was tired, but because he felt safe. And that feeling, for a dog like Miles, was a miracle. She whispered, "You're okay now." And he sighed, the kind of sigh that carries 1,000 nights of waiting, 1,000 shadows, 1,000 silent "please don't forget me's," released in one exhale. He stayed close, even when a truck rolled past, even when a bottle clattered to the pavement nearby. He stayed, because the world might still be loud. But here, in her arms, was quiet. That night, she didn't drive away right away. She sat in the gravel beside him until the stars blinked overhead, and the gas station fell silent. She whispered stories he couldn't understand, talked about loss and beginnings, and the ache of starting over. And he listened, not with words, but with presence, the most sacred kind. When she stood to leave, he followed her to the car. Not pressing, not begging, just wondering, could this be the place he goes? Could this be the end of the waiting? Could this be home? She opened the back door, patted the blanket inside. He didn't move, so she nodded, closed it, whispered, "Tomorrow," and he watched her drive away, not with despair, but with knowing, with peace. The next day, he was waiting by the car before she even parked. A new beginning. He didn't hesitate. When the door opened that morning, Miles stepped forward, not because he was told, not because he was forced, because something inside him, something ancient and tender, finally whispered, "Go." He jumped into the car, clumsy, light-footed, unsure, but present, alive, and for the first time, ready to leave the waiting behind. She didn't say anything, just smiled, buckled her seatbelt, rolled down the windows, let the wind kiss both of them as they drove away from the gas station, from the place that held his loyalty like a wound, from the corner of asphalt where he gave his whole heart to someone who never looked back. He watched through the glass for a while, ears forward, eyes soft. Then he curled up on the blanket in the back seat, closed his eyes, and slept. It was the first real sleep in months. No concrete under his body, no shadows crawling into his dreams, no ghosts of engines that never returned, just softness, warmth, and motion. The beautiful rhythm of moving on. Her home was small, quiet, full of things she didn't speak about, but he understood. They shared silence, and in it, a language unfolded. She gave him space, let him find his own corners, let him explore the yard, sniff the couch, circle the kitchen. There were no leashes here, no loud hands, no slammed doors, just a bowl with his name, a soft bed near hers, and a voice that always said please. In time, he settled, not like dust, but like belonging. He learned the sound of the kettle, the creak in the floorboards, the difference between the knock of a neighbor and the wind. He learned that meals came every day. At the same time, that love wasn't earned through tricks or obedience. It was given, because he was. One afternoon, he ran, really ran, across the field behind the house, ears flapping, tongue out, tail like a flag behind him, and she laughed, spinning with him, arms open, voice wide. And Miles, he barked, joyful, wild, free. The sound cracked the sky, and something inside her broke wide open. That night, he slept on her feet, heavy, soft, full of trust. She whispered, "I think you saved me too." And he didn't move, didn't stir, but his ear twitched, as if to say, "I know." There are scars that remain, beneath the fur, inside the chest, not visible, but felt. He still startles at loud noises, still watches the door a little too long. But now, he knows what comes next. Love. Return. The opening of arms. Not the closing of trunks. He's not the dog from the gas station anymore. He's not a ghost, not a question. He is Miles. A dog with a story, a heart that waited, a soul that held on, even when no one else did. Thank you for listening to Miles's story. You being here right now means the world. At Diary of Abandoned Souls, we don't just tell stories, we carry them. Because every dog we meet, every heart we touch, tells us something true about the world and about ourselves. I'm Adriana. I'm a groomer. And every tale you hear on this channel is real. It came to us through our rescue work. It came in shivers, in silence, and in soft, trusting eyes. Miles waited for someone who would never return. But in the end, he was found by someone who stayed. If this story touched you, please subscribe to Diary of Abandoned Souls. It helps us keep telling these stories, and maybe, just maybe, help more dogs like Miles find home. In the description below, you'll find the link to our grooming channel, where we show what healing looks like when it's wrapped in warm water, soft brushes, and a whole lot of love. Because sometimes the strongest kind of love is the one that waits quietly until the right soul says, "I see you, come home."